Here we go. Hold on, let me call the lieutenant because he will bust through the door. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
And three.
Hello, we are joining you from the Cincinnati Police Department's Facebook Live and also numbers of other platforms here to talk about the U visa. I'm here with my friend Dave Diaz.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. We are thrilled to be back here in a Thursday, our Thursdays. So here we are joining in the Law Office of Valencia Diaz platform, social media, and as well as the Cincinnati Police Department platform. And we invite everybody to follow the platforms because it's a way that Cincinnati Police Department also informs. And I have checked out the Instagram account. It's really cool.
Yes, absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the U visa process, some things that people may have questions about, so we can kind of inform what it is and what it's about. And then if there's things that you have and you want to put into the feed as questions, we'll try to answer them as we go.
Yeah, sure. For sure. So we were talking about T visas and U visas. Do you want to mention what is your role within the police department?
Absolutely. So I'm the immigration liaison officer for the police department here. And so what that entails is a whole umbrella worth of things. But to what we're talking about today is doing the background investigations on U visas and T visas, making sure that they qualify, get them signed off on and returned to either the petitioner or to the lawyer as quickly as possible. So then that process is not strung out even longer than it already is.
So normally, how that process starts with you.
So I had one today. So basically, it is sent to me. I will then go and investigate the background of it to make sure that there was a crime that took place, that is a qualifying crime that took place, and that the victim assisted us in the best efforts that they possibly could to be able to solve that crime that we were working on. And with all those factors in place, then we would sign it off and return it back to the petitioner.
That's amazing. So what happened if the victim was not able to identify the abuser? Would that be enough for you guys to deny it?
No, no. So um, the certification is not based on a conviction. It is not based on being able to identify. It's just based on, first of all, reporting it. Which is a battle all of itself. But to trust the fact that we are not going to do anything to the victim but help support, and that's what we're here for, is to help support in the process of solving the crime, trying to add protections to not just the victim but the people in that area that the crime occurred in, and then to go forward with, if we can, identifying the person, charging them, and having them arrested. But that is not the victim's job to have them arrested or to identify them if they're not able to. It's just to assist us in the best way possible to get as much information about the crime as possible so then we can then enforce the law.
That is amazing because sometimes when I talk to my clients, the victims, they feel between they feel in a really not a perfect spot because they cannot say for certain what happened. No, they will say, I felt a gun in my bag, but I didn't see it. Will that count? Because I know that you have been trained and you also take in consideration the culture where they're coming from.
Absolutely.
And in Latin America, unless you see it, unless you remember and you say, yes, I saw it, and it was black and with red marks, they don't believe you. So
Yeah.
here, would you take into account their statement?
Oh yes, absolutely. Um, it doesn't have to be. So, like for example, felonious assault. Felonious assault is your serious physical harm to the victim, but felonious assault doesn't have to have serious physical harm. It could be the threat of that serious physical harm. So you don't have to be shot for it to be that offense. It's the threat of that offense as well. So in this case, we talked about the person not seeing the gun, but the gun being implied, whether it be behind the person or maybe they reach into their pocket, but they don't actually show it. If the victim has that fear that there is a gun present and they are threatened with that fear of the gun, that is good enough for that.
Good to know, and good to, for them to actually say it, which
Yes.
is I am always endorsing that. Say what you feel in that specific moment. So, what it will be the best way to report a crime?
So, I mean, in the immediate situation, once you can get to a spot of safety or what have you, please call 911. And with 911, we have a language line. So if you speak Swahili, for example, and you don't know anything else, you can just say Swahili, 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 and then we will get a translator on the phone to be able to get that information.
Or español, español, español.
Absolutely, español. And whatever language, you can put it out there, and then we will get a translator, and then give us that information once you get to a spot of safety. That way we can respond and help you in your time of crisis or need, and then follow up with giving us all the information so we can make a good report.
That's amazing. So some of my victims of domestic violence, they call 911 in the immediate time that they feel threatened, and sometimes they call because they're pushed because they want to survive the moment, right?
Absolutely.
And when the police comes and knock, and they answer into the door, they're like, no, nothing happened. It was a mistake, you know? Do you have any advice?
So when something like that happens, we actually do a very good job here in our police department because we have what we call divert, which is people from Women Helping Women that will respond to our runs. So not only can we talk to the person that is in crisis and need, but we can bring somebody that's not law enforcement to be able to talk to our victims and really give them advice or information or even some type of assistance. Like if they don't want to be there, go to a safe house, or if they need to go to a friend's house, give them transportation and things like that. Because sometimes we as police officers, we're in uniform. I mean, we're already intimidating because we bring all these tools to the scene, you know what I'm saying? And then, of course, in your time of crisis, you're already amped up. But to be able to see somebody that's not in uniform, that, you know, is kind of like everybody else, that you can talk to, it might help bring the situation down and then provide more information than that's needed. But the important thing is to understand that we're here to help. We're not here to do more harm, you know, and as long as we can provide some type of help or safety or protection in those situations, and then, you know, enforcement afterwards, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I guess that it is very easy to say, right? For the domestic violence victims that reported, find a shelter, and all your stability will be shattered in a way, right?
Yeah.
But as this, you know, I have had some clients that say, you know, they have been able to report it, they have filed a U visa, they have the work permit, right, and they have been able to build a life without violence.
Yes. Yeah. Well, so the assumption here with domestic violence is that the home has to be torn up or shattered too, and that's not necessarily the case. I'm not to say that it doesn't cause that. It does cause the other thing, but when you go into the process of domestic violence, you can go into a court. You can ask for assistance. You can ask for, you know, evaluations. You can ask for therapy. You can ask for all kinds of things in the process of the criminal investigation of that. So I know, you know, TV wise or news media wise, usually it's like a disruption of the home and the family and everything else, and it might be one at that moment, but there are numbers of times where the families have been actually reunited after that process. They've gone through counseling, they've gone through support systems and things like that, and actually have made the household better because of it. So I mean, I know most of the time it's always, you hear the stories of really bad things, but there's also some positive things that come out with the judges and the prosecutors and the attorneys that actually lead into better relationships in the home.
And let's say that was the case, right? That they go through the court process. And
I think that's his phone. Sorry. Okay.
It's okay. It is perfect. However, they would say, well, I am back with the abuser. Would that still qualify me for the U visa? And I say yes.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the qualifying crimes for U visas is domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it's another reason why to report it, not just for that, but all the other protections that come and the assistance that you may need living in that type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
But the U visas, so you know that we as law enforcement are not going to do anything to you to seek the assistance that you need in your time of crisis. I mean, domestic violence is a time of crisis. I mean, when you have to call, it's rare that domestic violence is happening at that time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
survivors of domestic violence have gone through numerous times before they actually have the courage and the fortitude and the strength to be able to know
Yeah.
that they need to reach out and get support. You
Yeah.
know, so um, this is what the U visa is for victims to know that they can have that support without bad things happening to them as far as law enforcement, because we're not here to want to hurt our victims. We want to support them and help them and then take care of them in their time of crisis.
Yeah. So if you ask a victim about their immigration status, or you don't ask.
No, yeah, at the time of the run, the radio run, and us responding and things like that, it doesn't matter to us. We are not federally mandated to enforce federal law. We are local police officers, which is different than a number of countries that our immigrants come from. A number of law enforcement in other countries are federal and really don't handle domestic things. We are a local police department. We handle all domestic issues,
You're
and
not ICE,
no,
just to be
no,
clear.
we're not ICE, and we don't do any type of enforcement like them. You know.
Okay, just because we in Cincinnati is awesome, just because also I live here.
Mhm.
So let's say that everybody, whoever is watching us, do not live in Cincinnati. They don't have that fortune that we live here.
Sure.
But when they report the crime, that officer, the reporting officer, do ask about the immigration status. Do you have any recommendation for them?
So, I mean, there are rare times that you may have to ask that, and that's just to understand where your victim may be coming from if they're not trying to report stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to make it completely bad if an officer asks, because then that might tell me, okay, maybe you're afraid of me right now. I need to kind of, calm those fears and let a person know that we're here to help. Okay. But law enforcement across the board, especially now, way the federal government is, local law enforcement has no authority federally to enforce any immigration law.
Yeah.
So they have we have no powers to be able to do any of those things. We can't detain you. We can't arrest you just based on that. None of those things apply right now. Which is a blessing to our immigrants. Because then they can trust the fact that if they need us, that they can call. Um, if something like that were to happen, where an officer was treating you poorly because of your immigration status and asking you questions like that, I mean, I would encourage you to report that officer. You don't have to do that right on the scene. Let the officer go and do whatever they want to do, and report us. I mean, especially here in Cincinnati, we have our badge number that's on there. My name is on here with my badge number. If we were outside and on a run and I'm wearing my hat, my badge number is on my hat. And you don't even have to ask. You can call 911 with here. Most states have 911 or all of them now, and you can ask who was the officer that was here, and they can
Mm-hmm.
give you that information. So you don't have to ask the officer, and that way you can report that this officer was asking you questions that weren't appropriate or you felt that weren't appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And that way that can be dealt with, with supervisors and things like that, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. Um, Again, we as police officers have a responsibility to be held accountable for what we do in helping everyday citizens in whatever situation they may call us, as far as their service. We're helping in accidents and domestic violence. It could be, I mean, anything, even just, power outages where we have to direct traffic. Our job is to be able to assist all of our community members and do it in a way that's professional.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So do you have also, I see like a body cam.
Oh, absolutely. So
Mm-hmm.
another thing that I really love about, because I've been on 24 and a half years now.
Oh,
So
wow.
we didn't have these when I first started, but I really love the fact that we have them, because not only can I tell you what I'm doing, but I have something to show you that this is what I'm doing. So if I'm disrespectful or I'm saying something that is not correct or things of that nature, this will tell you that.
Are they on 24/7?
But they're on, but they have to be on when we're dealing with the public.
Mm.
So Like there are times we do have off time, so they're not on when we're off. But for most officers and everything else like that, when we respond to runs, all of them have to be on when we're dealing with the public, or we actually get in trouble when they're not.
Do
You
you
know.
have to get them on, or they get on by itself?
So there's different ways for them to come on. So if it's just a radio run where we're not responding in a certain level, then yes, we would turn them on. But like if I activate my taser and I try to use it, it comes on automatically. If I pull my firearm, it comes on automatically. If there are officers and we're all responding to a critical incident, if their camera's on, like if you had a camera and your camera's on, my camera's going to be on now because they all activate together. So there's a number of different ways that they come on. The most important thing is that we have them to show you what we're doing. So that way, not TV cops and not what all the other police shows, but real life, you can see that 99% of the time we're dealing with the public and we're professional and we're courteous and we're just assisting them with everyday things.
Amazing. So what else? What has tell us one of the challenges in the U visa world that you have encountered?
Well, the biggest challenge is just the fear of what police officers may do. Something like this is not really put out in media and TV as far as us being here to help them in their time of crisis. And I mean, the crisis itself is bad, and so people have to have kind of the mindset that if they're dealing with something horrible, like I'll give a perfect example. We had a guy that was held at gunpoint and his car was stolen. They took his keys, his cell phone, and stuff like that. Well, he didn't report it because he didn't want to come to the police. Well, the blessing was the place actually had a camera that actually caught the whole thing on film. And so we had to actually find this gentleman and say, hey, we know that you're a true victim of crime. It's okay to come report this. We're not going to do anything to you, but help you in this way. And then explain what the U visa is and the process of protection. So that way he knows that despite whatever this happens here, the protections are in place for him to be able to help us get this bad guy off the street. And in turn, in helping us, he has the protections to not have anything happen to him other than get the support as a victim.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I think that we go mostly what we have heard in now social media or TV or TV shows, but this is far from reality. I mean, that most of it doesn't really happen, and most of my interaction, I have been practicing for almost 11 years, and I have to say that most of my interaction with law enforcement, because I do a lot of U visas, have been extremely pleasant, and you guys have become a colleague and friends. So just because we are in the same team, and I have not found, I have a couple of them, and we have talked about it, like the ones that they don't want to certify because they feel such and such. And we discuss about those situations. But most of the times I have found that the police do want to help.
We absolutely do. I mean, because as a police officer, just as a sole police officer, you don't want bad guys out here. If you're running a beat and they're creating victims left and right, that's one of the worst feelings you have as a police officer. You don't want people to be outside going to Kroger's or worried about what's going to happen to them every day basis when you're patrolling and you're trying to prevent that. And so being able to have this tool to let people know that, hey, we're here to help. Let's get the bad guys here. Let's get them off the street so then everybody else can feel safe and do what they need to do on a daily basis is important. And for our victims to understand beyond just the crime itself, that, hey, we are completely here to help you, regardless of whatever status, regardless of wherever you come from. This is what we do here. I mean, that's a quality of life that you cannot purchase, because that you have some protections here, just living your everyday life.
Yeah. That's good. So the T visa and the U visa were enacted because of the fear. It was acknowledged the fear of the immigrant communities.
Absolutely.
They had or have and continues to have to report the crimes, right?
Yes, absolutely. So literally, it went all the way up to the federal government, and this was back in the mid-90s, where they knew as law enforcement we were handicapped with this fear, that we're not getting the crimes reported. We're not getting the ability to enforce the law like we're capable of because we're not getting these crimes reported, because there is a complete fear that as law enforcement, we were going to harm the victims, either by deportation or threats of deportation, or just not even respect the fact that immigrants are victims. So they enacted this federal law, putting in protections so that we can actually do our job to the fullest extent when we have a victim.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they thought so. The U visa was enacted 2000, and they thought that with 10,000 visas per year,
Mhm.
we're gonna be enough.
Mhm.
That they cannot be more victims.
Mhm.
That they cannot be
no.
more. And right now, surprisingly, that cap has met year by year.
Yes.
And right now, we are seeing that the people that have filed the U visas 2016, the first semester are the ones that they are getting their actual U visas.
Mhm.
So that is frustrating for the people that have the U visa. And when I say, well, if you are victim of a crime, reported, then they come back say, well, that benefit is gonna take me years and years.
Yes.
And I said, well, do you have something else how to apply? No, so let's do it.
Yes.
And also, I as an immigration attorney, it is good to have that in your file. Why? Because you don't know what is going to come tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right, so that
Absolutely.
it can prevent your removal, it can prevent you from being deported from the United States. Is also allow you to include your family members, a spouse or children. They have to have certain conditions, but and if sometimes if the a minor is a victim, they can also include the family, their parents.
Yes, it's an important point that you make. We have a number of victims, but unfortunately, I want to say maybe about a year ago, we had a homicide,
Mm.
and the family did not understand that based on this homicide, they were victims too.
Mm.
And so through our Victims Advocates Agency, which we have in the police department, we reached out to the family and we assisted them with U visas as well, because they're victims of something like that as well. You have a family member that is murdered and killed, you know, that person clearly is a victim. That's no brainer, but their family is also. So that's an important point that you make that people don't think about as far as the U visa process is concerned.
Yeah, that's important because now we venture into the area of not only direct victims, that
Mhm.
they are the one that is receiving the suffering, the mental or the physical suffering, but
Yes.
also the indirect victims
Absolutely.
that are protected under the regulations.
Mhm.
And also we have the witnesses that also are protected under the
Absolutely.
regulations.
Absolutely.
And they have to, it is easier to say, but immigration will still take a look in the cases that they are witnesses. They have to meet the same criteria, the certification, which is the signature of law enforcement agency,
Yes.
and all the other requirements from the UVC standpoint. But they are also other victims.
Yes.
They are not the one that they are being held at gunpoint, for example.
Absolutely. And again, that's the importance of the U visa, because it brings people forward to give law enforcement all the information and everything they may need to be able to solve these cases, get criminals off the street that are making more victims, and know that we have protections here. So then they feel free to do this. Come forward, report these things, and assist law enforcement so we can do our job.
Yeah,
Mhm.
amazing.
Mhm.
What else do you have in mind?
So, we talked about domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the other things that fall under it, what I've already said, felonious assault.
Mm-hmm.
So that would fall under that. We could talk about. Well, we start with the processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So clearly making the report, making sure that you provide the police with any and all information you can, and making yourself available if we have to respond and come back for more information. And that happens all the time. So, and my job is, when I get the request for the signature, is that I'm going to go to the investigator, I'm going to go to the officer that might be on the scene, or I'll check the investigative notes to make sure that we're seeing that, hey, we're getting all the information and everything we possibly can to be able to assist all the entities in our department to get this person that committed this crime.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, my suggestion would be to go to you, or an attorney that actually knows what they're doing with this, so then they can educate the victim on how this process is going to go, because the process itself is really long.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of questions that people don't understand. And I've dealt with a lot of attorneys, and you're an amazing one.
Oh, thank you.
but there are some attorneys out there that are not so good. And so it's important to know that you have somebody that knows what they're doing and this knows the process and how to handle it. That way, because this process can be really confusing and it can be
Yeah.
really long, it can be drawn out, and it can be frustrating for the victim. And we definitely don't want the victim to be re-victimized going through this process when this is a positive process to assist the victim, to assist us.
Yeah, and that's what I tell the clients or the people that sometimes they watch the lives. The certification is a piece of art, the
Mhm.
signature, because that is a form that immigration created
Mhm.
for law enforcement to be able to communicate with immigration,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So an attorney that knows what they are doing or they are educated in the field should be able to fill that out for the officers. Now, if the officer wanted to add, correct, or do
Mhm.
something else, they
Mhm.
have the liberty to do so.
Mhm.
But I was trained and I like to provide everything filled out
Yes.
in the way that I'm making my arguments for easy for you and easy
Mhm.
for the case and for the officer that is going to review the case, right?
Yes.
And the example, it is aggravated robbery.
Mhm.
That is the pristine example because aggravated robbery, it is not a listed qualifying crimes.
That is correct.
But that's not to say that when an aggravated robbery is committed, other crimes might be also committed, but they were not charged in the police report, right?
Absolutely, that is correct.
So in the certification, we can include that maybe the reporting officer, might have thought of the crimes, but decided
Yes.
in their discretion and their training to charge whatever crime it was in the police report.
Yes.
And that helps the case, right?
Mhm.
Because otherwise it puts the victim in a very awkward position to be filling out a document that they don't know how to fill out,
Mhm.
or the police officer to actually be interpreting the immigration law or be practicing law, or not it gets the people out of the places. So
Yes.
there is legal aid. Those they don't have to come. They don't have to come to my firm. There is also another firms in the nation.
Mhm.
There's always legal aid in most of the cities in
Yes.
the United States,
Mhm.
and they help also with U visas.
Absolutely. I think you make important point is understanding some people will not petition this because they think that the qualifying crimes have to literally
Mhm.
be in the list of qualifying crimes. But every state, and province, matter of fact, have different titles for these laws. So they don't necessarily like robbery here may not be robbery in another state, but it's still the same qualifications for that. And so it's important to understand that, the government leaves a lot of leeway for this, to if it has the qualifying things, even though it may not have the same title, it still qualifies because it has the characteristics of the same crime.
Mhm.
So for example, aggravated menacing, not listed as
Yeah.
a qualifying crime, but if you look at what statutes are underneath that fit that, it fits the bill for qualification, and you can apply for that. So
Mhm.
that would be something that we would definitely sign off on, especially if we have everything information wise and witness wise and everything else like that to assert that and file charges on the person doing that.
Yeah. One of the crimes that comes often, it is the difference between aggravated robbery or robbery with theft.
Yes. Mhm.
Can you explain the difference?
So theft is when you would take somebody's property without permission, but there would not be anything else to that. So there would not be any physical contact or threat of harm or physical harm to somebody. Where robbery, you would either create the physical harm, the threat of physical harm, or do something to make the person feel endangered, and then take said property. So like another misnomer is burglary. If
Mhm.
burglary is somebody breaking into a dwelling that somebody would most likely live there, where breaking and entering is a dwelling that has nobody living in there. So your example of breaking and entry would be like a warehouse or a garage that's not attached to a house.
Mhm.
The likelihood of somebody living in there is not high.
Mhm.
But if you deal with a house burglary, which again it's not listed in here, but if you're in the house when this burglary happens, it's a
Mhm.
qualifying crime. And
Mhm.
so again, having to understand the law, having a good attorney to be able to understand where this comes into play to be able to explain that to our victims and understand that this is something that is an opportunity for them to be able to have this protection and assist law enforcement is huge.
Yeah, and I also I think that us as attorneys, sometimes a piece is missing of having communication with law enforcement.
Hmm.
Because back in the day when I started my practice, I'm like, I am seeing all these crimes, and then you're just reporting one. And I asked
Hmm.
the chief of police in Springdale, and I said, "Why you don't report all of that?" And he would then explain me because of the prosecution, because of the prosecutor's office.
Yeah.
And then it depend, and then I got it, I understood.
Hmm.
So sometimes we have, as practicing attorneys in the U visa or T visa, we have to understand where you guys are coming from as well as where we are coming from to actually help the victim.
Right. Well, again, we'll talk about burglary, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So burglary is an offense where you break into an occupied dwelling, somebody that's most likely to live there, and commit another offense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just breaking into a house. You have to go in with the either the attempt or the successful completion of another offense. So most people are like, well, why don't you charge with burglary and theft? Well, no, because it's in the law. That it's already built in that
Mm-hmm.
that's the second
Mm-hmm.
offense. So burglary would cover that. So there's a number of laws that are like that. Again, throughout the country, where it may not be listed like exactly on the paper saying this is a qualifying crime, but all the characteristics fit that for the application.
Because they're included in another
Hmm.
crime, because other elements are included in that other crime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like for example, we say that with assault, like simple assault,
Hmm.
it can be included the restriction of the liberty of somebody.
It could be, yes, depending on
The facts.
yes, depending on the facts or the elements of it. Yes, it can.
Yeah.
And that's again, that's why it's important that reporting it, and then once you report it and you understand that you're helping with police and everything else like that, definitely get with somebody, attorney wise, that can explain these things to you and get you a complete understanding. Because I've had some U visa certs that are sent to me that aren't good, and so you think about the process and it's already a long process. Then I get this cert that's not good, and I have to explain to the attorney this is not a good one, or we need to fix this, or this is not proper, or this is not even a qualifying crime.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've collected money from this victim, possibly they've prolonged this whole process. If it's a good one, I mean, that's again, it's a hard process, it's long, it doesn't need to be more complicated than what it is.
I think so too.
Hmm.
But also, as I said, it is a piece of art, the certification, because that will open so many doors for the victim, but it has to be argued in the right way.
Absolutely.
And I mentioned theft because sometimes clients or victims will think that any crime will qualify,
Hmm.
and it's not.
Hmm.
Theft will be a not qualifying crimes
Hmm.
because there was not that element of the violence.
Correct.
And or burglary, that I have had some cases like that, but they was empty house, like they was
Yes.
not confronted
Hmm.
directly. And I
Hmm.
have to explain the intention of this law. It is for victims that they have suffered direct violence or
Hmm.
threat of violence.
Yes.
They don't have to be completed the crime, but there was at least that threat.
Right.
And if you were not there, well,
Right, but I mean, it can, again. There's some elements where it could fit. If somebody is known to the person and they break into their house and they leave threatening stuff and things like that, then you know that you have a personal, fear of safety for yourself.
mm-hmm.
That's why I said it depends on the elements and how they go in. But that's what's important about, you know, um, having a good lawyer to understand that. And not only this, there's a number of times as a police officer getting reports that they may not have enough information.
Mm-hmm.
So I will take information from the report, or I will take information from the investigation and say, hey, this is what you really have here, which is even more so qualifying than what you already have. And so it's important that law enforcement and these attorneys work together like we do,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to assist our victims and know they're getting the support that they need.
Amazing. We have a question here.
Mhm.
Says my daughter was victim of sexual abuse, and I was afraid to report it. 2 weeks after I decided to report it, because I didn't know, I did not have enough information. I got I was in a panic attack.
Yeah.
So because it says, sadly, this is not the only case, and I'm assuming that you see as well a
Oh,
lot of
no.
sexual abuse
Oh yeah.
against minors, which
Absolutely.
is just so saddening.
It's horrible.
But if you did not have, if you didn't caught the crime when it was happening, and you cannot call 911, what else could you do to report it?
You still report it. Okay.
911 or what?
Well, if it's not like happening right then,
Mm,
okay, and you can still call 911 if you're not, comfortable coming to a district. We will respond to you. Um, but if you can come to a district or what have you, then we can get the report. We can get it at, what do you want to call it? Like in a comfortable setting, if you
mm-hmm.
will. And then be able to go with that. If it's a minor, you can even take them to Children's Hospital. And
Mm-hmm.
Children's Hospital will initiate the report, and then we will come and
Yes.
complete and get all the information as well. It just depends on the circumstance. But the most important thing is to report it. Report it,
Correct.
because if it's not reported, we don't know it ever happened. And
Mm-hmm.
then we can't go and assist you as a victim, or in this case her daughter as a victim, in all the ways. Again, it's not just U visas or T visas. I mean, you can have all kinds of support all the way through, from children's to law enforcement to women helping women. All of these things are kind of like an umbrella thing now, that we're all tied together to help the victim through, again, another crisis here.
Yeah. There's
Mhm.
also the Victim Compensation Fund
Absolutely.
in most of the states.
Yeah, so our police department has an amazing victims advocate office, and they go and help all of our victims. I mean, even way after the crisis has occurred. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we have a number of kids that we'll follow up and assist with them that might have, maybe their parents were murdered or things like
Mm-hmm.
that, and we have programs for them. We reach out to them. We make sure that they're good. So I mean, it's important to understand that there are so many more things out here now that, again, we cannot change the crisis, but we can help you along the way as far as being able to get through it and manage it, and hopefully, find some type of, what do you want to call it? Just a solid base of support.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So based on like a preventative measure, right, for those sexual abuse cases,
Hmm.
in your experience, what would be advice, to protect minors from that situation?
So, are you talking about before it occurs or after it
No,
occurs?
before it occurs, like a
So,
preventative.
definitely, being with, your kid, and knowing, the people that you have around you and your kids. I mean, we're both parents,
No,
so
yes.
as far as monitoring mine, I make sure I know where they're at, who they're with, just being in their business all day long,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard sometimes, because again, the way this world is, everybody's working 100 hours, and staying busy, and everybody's got all kinds of different directions to go in. But especially, with younger children, it's just vital to make sure that you keep tabs on them, and do your best. Nobody's perfect, to be able to know and keep the right people around them. Mhm.
So I guess that my question was, what is the modus operandi? What is like the most common trends that you see that minors can fall in the trap of, and then be victims of sexual abuse?
So with our younger kids, it's just having people around them. You know what I'm saying? The
Mm-hmm.
younger kids, even though it's getting younger as far as technology and everything else is concerned, most of the time it's just who you have babysitting, or who you have around them, or
Mm-hmm.
or who they're playing with, or what have you. When you What we're really having a serious problem with, and it's definitely with our young immigrant ladies here lately, is social media.
Mm-hmm.
They're meeting people that they think are certain people, and they're not.
Younger, like you
You
mean
know,
like younger than 18, like
no,
that
no,
meeting
I'm
or a
saying
date,
anywhere from, like, we can go maybe 10, 11 years old, and go maybe up to like 15 or 16.
and they're meeting somebody for a date or
Oh, well,
something?
it could be date, or just saying, hey, I'm going to go play with a friend's place, or things
Okay.
like that. And then it doesn't end up being that person, because, for us being adults, we know that social media has all kinds of different dangers and things like that, because we've lived long enough to be able to know that everything is not truthful. But for these kids, social media kind of like opens the door for them to communicate and talk to all kinds of people and find out all kinds of information that when we were kids, we weren't privy to. And
Mm-hmm.
so you get to talking to somebody for 3 months or 4 months, they become part of, your everyday. And
Mm-hmm.
so you tend to trust that. And again, it's, I mean, just as simple as the person not even being the real person is completely traumatizing to a teenager, let alone then meeting somebody that's not that person. And then you're kind of embarrassed because you've dealt with this person. What do I do? How do I handle it? And again, as teenagers, you don't have all those answers.
Okay, so let's get into more deeper questions about that, right?
Sure.
So because then you start like a relationship online with a person that they don't know, and they share nude pictures.
Correct. So again, that's a crime. So it's a felony crime if you're a juvenile.
Mm-hmm. But if I look
Mhm.
at like the kid
Well, it can be
or
for
who?
it can be for both. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to enforce the law, necessarily on juveniles because I mean juveniles are not perfect. They don't know all of these things. So, um, but we definitely, especially when it comes to adults and things like that are trying to procure those pictures from juveniles, we want them. And
Mm-hmm.
we want them in the worst way because they're abusing the fact that juveniles don't have all the answers, don't know all the things. But again, because social media is so social, it puts them on a platform
And
where these things,
viral,
yes,
and it can just scale. And once it's out there, it's out there.
absolutely. And then and you bring it back to our immigrants and even our refugees, you have a language barrier with understanding those laws as
Yes.
well. And so we go around a lot of the schools explaining to them, hey, here's the laws, here's the protections for you. Once these things are submitted, they cannot be erased.
Mm-hmm.
And that I mean, you can erase it on a phone, but it's been transmitted. So even that transmission is saved or stored in some type of company software or whatever. So it's important, that if you're dealing with people online, that you actually know them. You know who they are. You can actually see them face to face. Not dealing with somebody that's not local. You know, again, the language barrier is a challenge because let's say you come from Venezuela. There's not a lot of people that are speaking Spanish when you first get here. You might get into some schools that you can
Mm-hmm.
meet some friends, but you're kind of isolated. So now you find somebody that's
And more,
online.
they're also
Mhm.
more vulnerable because they are alone.
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm saying that. Yeah, they're
Mm-hmm.
isolated. So the important thing is again to as a parent to be in your kid's life as far as what they're doing social media wise, be in their world, if you will, know who they're talking to. But then even as a kid, you have to be careful not to overexpose yourself to those dangers because there are real people out here that are criminals that will hurt,
Mm-hmm.
abuse, and disrespect
Yeah.
our teenagers.
Yeah, from my side of view, I don't know if you share this, Tony, or not, but babysitters. I have had cases of babysitters that they have abused physically the
Mhm.
minors. I
Mhm.
have one case that it cannot. It was one of my early cases that the babysitter just lost the temper and
Yes.
slammed the kid, and the
Mhm.
kid had to be flown to children's
Mhm.
to do like like a surgery in their brain.
Mhm.
So for that, I would say, well, please know who you're leaving the kid with. In the
Mhm.
immigrant community, there is this focus that you came here to the United States to work,
Yes.
and you still have kids, and you have to
Mhm.
do something with the kids,
Yes.
and if they are U.S. citizens and you don't have the means to you or the family or where to leave the kids, they can get vouchers to just leave them with daycares.
Yeah. Again, you mentioned a number of the challenges. Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, work and trying to support your family and trying to do these things in short, you know, immediate times. I mean, one of the biggest things when immigrants and refugees come here is they tell them to work. I mean, they literally
Hmm.
find jobs for them because that's going to start building
Hmm.
that foundation as far
Yeah.
as living, providing for themselves, things of that nature. And so, yes, vouchers, professional babysitters, things of that nature are vital to be able to, again, make sure that you ensure the safety of your children.
Of course.
Enrolling them in school. For Cincinnati Public Schools, it doesn't cost $1 to enroll your kid into preschool, kindergarten, and but we'll have people trying to charge people, and yeah, and abuse them because again, the language barrier and not understanding, what the qualifications are.
And the Cincinnati public schools have aides that are able to speak in
Oh,
different language.
absolutely, absolutely. Cincinnati Public is amazing at being able to provide all the
Hmm.
services that we need to get your kid, your children
It's a
enrolled
very
in school.
diverse district.
Oh, absolutely it
Hmm.
is. And they have some terrific schools for immigrants and refugees. And so it's amazing the work that they do, but it's also important for all everybody to know that you have these opportunities to get these services still. I mean, even in the summer, you can have summer school and things like that, just to enrich your kid. It's not a punishment,
Mm-hmm.
but these things are available as well. Yeah,
Even though the
seriously.
kids will see it as a punishment.
Well, the kids will, yes, you're right.
The other thing that I see also with abuse on minors, it is that the abuse comes normally from people that are close to the victims.
Yes, at times that definitely does occur.
Yeah. So you will feel comfortable living with your kid with a family member just because it's a family member,
Mhm.
but you don't really know the family member because probably they have arrived to the United States one month ago,
Mhm.
and you know that it's a family member maybe from your spouse, but you don't know them. You don't really
Yes.
know them by the core,
Mhm.
and that's where it really happened. Where I see it happening more often.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I mean, the hard again. I know it's a challenge. It's hard, because like I said, in today's world, everybody's go go go, work work work, do do do. But I mean, some of the things that might help is having that person there when you're there to see the interactions, to see how the stuff works,
Mm-hmm.
and give you an idea of where these things could go or lead to, over time. I mean, not like one day, but over a period of
Mm-hmm.
time, how those go. Um, again, I
Check the
mean,
interaction with also with your kid. If your kid is acting weird,
yes, absolutely. That's what I said. You see the person dealing with whoever you have them with, and it's not, you know, it's not status. It's not normal behavior. It's not
mm-hmm.
things of that nature. That definitely gives you some clues that, at a minimum, that maybe this shouldn't be something that should be occurring.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And if you're a parent that suspects anything, and do not dispose of evidence in the sense that if you have blood, you found blood in the underwear, do not dispose it.
Hmm. No.
Save it
Yep.
and go and report it.
Report it.
Sometimes I'm being
Yes.
so specific because they need to hear it.
Oh no. Yeah, that's
And
fine. And again, when you're dealing with a juvenile, I mean, you don't have to just go to children's.
mm-hmm,
They have wraparound services there, and we will respond there.
mm-hmm.
So whatever a juvenile might need, those services will be there.
And it's sometimes I wanted to be so specific with my words, with my examples,
Mhm.
because I know that in Latin America it doesn't work that way, and in other countries it doesn't work that way.
Yes.
So I know I wanted to err in the side of being extremely explicit, because in their mind something else is going on.
Yeah. Well, sexual assault of a juvenile is one of the worst
Yeah.
crimes imaginable, or at least in my opinion, it is. So, I mean, anything and everything that you have to be able to show, indicate, and get law enforcement involved. Again, all wraparound services is imperative to save, bring it to the forefront. Get protections, everything else, because I mean, like I said, it's a traumatized. That is a crisis among itself. Mhm.
Yes. So I have a question. Well, a comment. My father, which he was the grandfather of my kids, he's been arrested for an abuse, a sexual abuse. So it does happen. Sadly, it does
Yeah,
happen,
it absolutely
and
does.
sometimes we have to talk about it to make sure that everybody knows that happens.
Yes,
So you can be in the watch out.
yes.
What help can I have as a single mother, no, as a mother, that the spouse, I don't know if abducted the kids to Mexico, they were born here,
Hmm.
and then right now they are being abused in Mexico. I would say that it will be international kidnapping, and the Department of State can assist you in that.
So yes, but I would need more information. So for the state of Ohio, I can speak for
Hmm.
Ohio. If a couple is married, then the parents have joint custody of the children unless there's something in courts that ordain otherwise. If there is no marriage between the couple, then the mother has more custody than the father, and that's in the state of Ohio. So that might be different in other states. So like if we had kids and we're not married, and you decide to take the kids to Mexico,
Hmm.
I don't have any right. I mean, I
Correct.
can petition for custody and do all the stuff like that in international court for that, but you would have more rights to take them than I would.
Yeah.
Okay, but if we're married and we have kids, and you decide to take them to Mexico, and I don't like that, we have equal custody, and I can fight that.
Yeah. So also there is a like international kidnapping, but anyway. So yes, for sure. One of the answers that we love it will be it depends, or I need to know more information.
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, just depending on what state you're in, they may have laws that are similar to Ohio that give you more protections for that. So that's
Yeah.
definitely something that more information and finding out what state you're in and being able to provide that.
Yeah. I don't know if we have questions in your
Oh, yeah. Were
your
there
social.
questions Facebook or?
Here in TikTok, we don't have questions now. Normally, we have a lot of questions. No?
No
No.
questions at the moment.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a couple of minutes.
Okay. Well, I just want to reiterate the fact that U visas are here to protect our immigrants, to report crimes, so that way you don't feel like you're going to be victimized again by the same people that are going to help you as far as law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that even if you know if you're not comfortable coming to the police station, we'll come to you. If you want to come to in a different manner or go to even an in-between place, there are times that I've met people outside the city of
Mhm.
Cincinnati, to be able to make reports if there's a fear that maybe you think something's going to happen city-wise. But the most important thing is to report it so we know that it's happening and we get the assistance to every victim that needs us, and then we can go forward. I mean, you can contact me here in the police department if you're worried about whether it's qualifying crimes or questions about U visas or what have you, as far as our end is concerned, and I can explain, what questions you may need or what answers, provide answers for you. And if I don't know them, we have Day here and a number of other people that are amazing at what they do to be able to provide those answers for you. But again, the most important thing is to report it. Report it as soon as you feel capable of doing that, so we can start this assistance.
And I can attest to that I have clients that they have reported after the fact.
Mhm.
But it is very important that the sooner is the better, because
Mhm.
when they come and they say, well, I have been robbed at gunpoint and it happened 10 years ago, I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
it has been too long.
Mhm.
And then they will be questioned the credibility, whether you're reporting because you wanted to report it or because you want the U visa, you know?
Correct. Absolutely. The sooner the better. And then it helps us evidence wise. If like for example, the gentleman that was robbed at gunpoint and didn't report it right away, because we had the video,
Mm-hmm.
we were able to put all of this stuff together and to help that young man, again, in his time of crisis. There are other things outside of just the victim that we can obtain information from, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
cameras, whether it be witnesses, whether it be, all kinds of other things, and it's important that the sooner you report that, the sooner we can collect all of that and then assist you with this offense that occurred.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because you actually crisscross information, you cross-reference information,
Mhm.
and because I remember that you helped me to report a aggravated robbery that happened at a park,
Mhm.
and you were
Mhm.
like, okay, when did that happen? And you went back, oh yes, this robberies were occurring
Mhm.
in this area, and we have other reports,
Mhm.
so that confirms. That crime, right? So that
Absolutely.
adds to the credibility to that victim in that specific moment.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So it all depends also the relationship with your client and the relationship you have with law enforcement.
Mhm.
But if you cannot have the assistance of an attorney, it is just better just to go to the precinct, the nearest office, the police officer, and take somebody that is able to speak English if you cannot speak English, or sometimes the law enforcement also have interpreters.
Yeah, we do. So since City of Cincinnati has an interpretation line at the least, so we can have somebody that's going to translate and give us the information that we need to make the report and give you assistance. And there's no excuse for not coming to us because it's a language barrier. We can assist you with that. But again, it might be that you need somebody that's going to be, that you're going to be comfortable with. By all means, bring somebody with you if you need that support. And we'll take as long as we need to be able to assist you to make the report and take care of you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Something
Okay.
else? What is it? What is your telephone number? Where they can contact you?
You can contact me you can email me, Anthony.Johnson at Cincinnati-OH.gov. And my cell phone number is 513-332-8549. Again, it's 513-332-8549.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think maybe what we can do next time is
Mhm.
maybe I can bring like 2 or 3 example cases and we can talk over them.